about 4 years ago now, the doors to my brain were opened to the glory of Apple silicon. I originally got the M1 MacBook Pro, and for my needs back then, it was so good. I actually ended up using it over my big old beefy desktop some of the time. And now on my M4 Max, I am plenty satisfied. So instead of trying to get an M5 that's now starting to release, I'm gonna do quite the opposite and get the absolute cheapest M1 MacBook I can to see how good it still is in 2026. Now there are 3 things I'm really looking to find out here. 1 is, what is the cheapest price I can get one for? 2 is, what are its real world limits? And 3, what's the future of them looking like? And I guess more importantly, is now a good time to buy one? But before I test it out, well, I actually have to buy one, so to eBay we go. M1 chips as a whole right now are at an incredible value for the power. For more intensive tasks, you can get something like an M1 Max with 64 gigs of RAM for $1,300. But again, I've embarked on the noble quest to find the cheapest M1 MacBook. And unsurprisingly, that's gonna be the MacBook Air. It looks like it's going between $300, $350, $400. Oh, here's one for $216, and that screen is looking great. You can almost tell what's on it. Oh, look at this, for $208. Oh, that's Intel. I think the weakest M1 chip is barely less powerful than the most powerful Intel chip in a MacBook. That's actually a pretty insane perspective to think about, especially when this is still going for $208. Now you could get something like the M1 Mac Mini for a little bit cheaper, but you gotta remember, you're saving what, 20 to 50 bucks, but you're missing out on a screen, a keyboard, a trackpad, speakers, and the portability. But that narrows us down to these 2 options here. Now, this one is the cheaper one. It has 4 pictures. Only one that I can guarantee is of the actual device that you'll be receiving. So the option that I'm gonna go with, and the one that I would recommend most people go with, is spending the extra whopping $22 to get a device that is clearly pictured. As a bonus, this one has double the storage. And again, the biggest thing that I noticed was missing on this cheaper option here is that there is nothing mentioning the battery health. If we go to the other option, they don't only have a picture that's mentioning it, it has only 24 cycles and a 96% max capacity. That is insanely good. So it is here. Will this be replacing my M4 Max? Of course not, but I am still excited and curious to see what it is capable of. And here it is. Now the M1 Airs were the only one to not offer a 15-inch screen, so this is a 13-inch laptop. And next to my 16-inch MacBook Pro, it is impressive how small it is, not just like width-wise, but thickness-wise. And honestly, if it wasn't for the sticker and this like little bit of gunk left over from probably another sticker, I forgot I bought this used. Like, this is in really nice condition. But in terms of the specs, it has the legendary and weakest M1 chip with 8 cores of CPU and 7 cores of GPU, an astounding 8 gigabytes of RAM, and a 1/4 terabyte of storage. I do want to talk about ports though. This has 2 USB-C on the left side and a headphone jack on the right. I gotta say, I wish there was 1 USB-C on either side because charging would be a lot easier that way. And this did not come with a charger, which was the case with pretty much all the other listings I saw on eBay, at least at this price range. And unlike the M2s and above, there is no MagSafe on this. I love MagSafe, but luckily with all MacBooks, you also have the option to charge it with USB-C. Now you can connect to only 1 monitor on this MacBook, but it is up to 6K. So you can get like the Apple Pro Display XDR, which obviously you have if you have a MacBook Air. We all have that lying around. It's not like that Pro Display XDR costs 20 of these MacBook Airs, but you know, your choice. All right, let's actually open this up. Or try to. Oh, this doesn't have like the 1 finger. Oh, actually, no, there it goes. I will say that was not nearly as easy as it is on my MacBook Pro. I don't know if that's just because it's very light and it doesn't weigh enough, or if it's just because it's the older design. It's looking pretty good here. I don't even see that spot of damage that the listing said it had. Oh, at an angle here, I do see like a little crack or scratch or something. That's weird though, because as soon as I tilt it back, it just completely disappears. I think I can live with that. And now you can actually see at the top here, there is no notch. I personally don't find it annoying. In fact, I actually got an app called Notchbox, which kind of gives it dynamic island type of functionality. And this does have the nice Apple trackpad and keyboard that they have with their laptops. And as I'm typing in my Wi-Fi password, I do notice the tapered edge here. This is actually the most recent MacBook that has the slanted tapered design for the wrist rest. Immediately, I'm digging it. But I am a pretty big fan of Touch ID. I think it just works, it's convenient. And just like that, we are in, but I do think macOS Tahoe is available to download, which I probably will. And it does have the 96% battery health and about 25 cycles as advertised. But side by side compared to my 16-inch overkill beefy MacBook Pro, here are the specs. This isn't for, a fair comparison. It's just for a reference point to show you how much of a difference there is. Because I'm gonna be figuring that out firsthand. I'm gonna try to do all of my work on this M1 MacBook Air for the next couple days. So I'll also be testing it with video editing, and that might get interesting because ironically, it's called the Air, but it doesn't have a fan, so it can't blow any air. And it also has 8 gigabytes of RAM. This will be fun, I'm sure. So after updating it to the most recent macOS, which is Tahoe, and transferring all of the files and installing all the apps I need, since through this week I am genuinely replacing my M4 Max with this, there was something not even related to my channel that I had to edit. It was pretty simple, it was just some iPhone footage, and unsurprisingly it handled it well. But there is a bigger edit that I will be doing on here throughout this video, and that is this video itself. At this point, I've actually already started it, and I'll get more into the experience once it's done later, but I feel guilty, I think is the best way to put it now. But to start testing the battery here, I'm sitting on 77%, and other than a couple Chrome tabs, the only other thing I have open is this document where I wrote some of the good and bad so far of using this M1 Air in the past few days. At its core, it's still a MacBook. So it has the infamously good trackpad, which I'm not ashamed to admit I love. And it feels exactly the same, except for the fact that it's smaller because it's not a 16-inch laptop. But what doesn't feel the same, and I actually prefer, is the tapered design of the keyboard and wrist rest. It is pretty subjective, but I find it more comfortable having the shallow wrist rest rather than the deeper one of like a 16-inch MacBook. And just by a small margin, what I also prefer is the keyboard itself. Like, it's hard to explain. It just feels a little more firmer. Like, there's a little bit more of a rebound after you press it down. I just find it a little more comfortable, also satisfying. And it is backlit, which is nice to have. In general, working away on these lighter tasks on the M1 Air with Tahoe, I've just found to be a comfortable and familiar experience. I will say I have noticed a bit of delay when I'm scrolling through big documents, opening apps, copying and pasting things, even like just clicking notifications, which I'm sure that's due to the lack of RAM. If a quarter of a second delay makes something unusable for you, then you should try breathing exercises and therapy because it's not that bad. Especially as we'll get into later, 8 gigabytes of RAM is not unusable. And yes, it is M1. There are 4 more generations of the M chips. This is the worst one. That doesn't mean it's bad. Like, for perspective, what's been more annoying is not being able to smoothly and consistently open it with one finger like that. I guess I've just gotten spoiled by how easy it is on the newer MacBooks. To be fair though, a lot of users of a laptop like this are probably opening it and closing it a lot, going from like class to class or meeting to meeting. So it's possible I'm not alone in finding that annoying. Talking about meetings, this came out in 2020, the year of the Zoom calls. So I'm sure then and now, a lot of people are going to be using this for video calls. Unlike the newer Airs and Pros, this only has a 720p webcam, but this is what it looks and sounds like. This thing feels huge to be back on, but this is what the M4's webcam and microphones looks and sounds like. And as far as speakers, I think MacBook speakers have always been pretty good, so I'll do a test between the two MacBooks, as well as throw in my iPhone 17 just for like another reference point. do want to hit on the display. Now, on paper, resolution-wise, it's worse than my MacBook. I don't notice too much of a difference. What I have noticed is brightness-wise, this is usually rocking it like towards 80% instead of the 50% on my MacBook. It is half as bright with the peak nits being 500 instead of 1000, so it makes sense. Now, my M4 has the ProMotion display. This MacBook Air, and I think even the newest M5 doesn't. It's a nice feature to have. I'd actually rather have ProMotion on a laptop than a phone. But it's not as big of a deal as people really make it out to be on the internet. And this is a 13-inch display, but even with the video editing I've done, I can say I've been comfortable. I have not felt cramped screen space-wise. Now, I did pop it into the more space option, which if you eat your carrots and have good eyesight, it does make a difference. It really opens it up. What I don't like is because there's no notch and this whole top part is like not screen real estate, when you're in an app full screen, there's no room for the menu bar just to sit up there. And obviously a big reason someone would opt for the Air is portability. It's lighter, it's thinner. I can comfortably hold it in one hand and not be scared, which is saying a lot because I have Apple Care on this one and not this. But I can promise you, there is nothing more elusive than a MacBook Air and AirPod setup. That is an elite productivity combo. But what hasn't been elusive is having a dangling SSD everywhere I go with this, if I want to do any amount of editing. Footage from my videos can be anywhere from 70 to 400 gigs. So I can't even store one of them on this drive internally. But like having this thing dangling is like just part of it. Like I've accidentally jiggled the cable and it like ejects it automatically and disconnects it, and then I have to reload it back in and plug it in. It's not convenient. So I will say I do think 256 is enough, but if you know you need more storage, definitely get it. I think if you can afford it, it's worth it. So after yapping to the camera for the past exactly 30 minutes, we have dropped from 77% to 72%. So that's 5% battery. So if you math that out, that's about 10 hours of battery life, which is right in line with my experience so far. I'm sure thousands of hours of YouTube are watched on MacBook Airs every single day, and I contributed to that. So here's another battery test playing 3 hours of a 4K YouTube video on a brightness level that looked good to me, which was about 60%. Battery dropped from 80% to 51%. That seemed like a lot, but considering it would equal out to just over 10 hours on a full charge, I think that's all I need. Now usually I have my MacBook off the side here on a stand with USB-C plugged into the right and then HDMI for the monitor, but that's impossible because all the USB-C are on the left and there is no HDMI. But I do think the whole port situation is the most inconvenient part of this entire laptop. But I don't need a bigger monitor, all these other peripherals, because this has everything I need. Right? Now, as far as video editing, before I get into the user experience of working on this, I think a lot of people, myself included, are interested in the render speeds. Now for these tests, I'll be using footage from Storyblocks, who's actually the sponsor of this video. Thank you. I'll be testing 1080p, 4K, and even 8K footage, and I can download as many of these as I want because with Storyblocks, you get unlimited downloads on images, video, music, sound effects, even things like graphic templates. And all of these shots are 100% human-made by professionals, so there's no generative AI, which I am a fan of. So here's 1 minute of 1080p footage, and rendering that took 22 seconds. Now if we step it up to the 4K timeline here, and rendering that took 58 seconds. And then now really pushing this machine with this beautiful 8K footage from Storyblocks. After 47 minutes, we're at 58%. Using this laptop to render 8K video probably won't save you a lot of time at all, but Storyblocks will, because instead of having to worry about any of the licensing issues, especially for something like music here, I know I'm good to go whether I'm working on a professional project or a YouTube video. Storyblocks is a true one-stop shop for all of your stock media needs, and it's all at a single subscription cost. So if you want to start creating better videos using the tools that I use, you can actually for a limited time get 15% off a Storyblocks annual plan, which is only available through my link, but thank you to Storyblocks for sponsoring this video. But I got back to work on editing this video with 100% battery to see how much a higher powered task drains it. I didn't want to hold back in any way, so I edited with the same 4K 422 10-bit footage in the same software, Final Cut Pro, that I usually use. And after about 40 minutes, the battery dropped 15%, which on a full charge would mean about 4.5 hours of video editing, which, at least in my eyes, that's great. And to see if the battery drains overnight, I shut the lid at 99% battery, and I woke up with it sitting at 98, so that's exactly what you want to see. I think it's safe to say that battery life is quite good on all ends. I'll also be testing how fast this can render this video, especially compared to my M4 Max, but what matters to me and probably a lot of other editors more than the render speeds is the editing experience. I'd say this video is 90% done. When I first started cutting through this video, it was totally fine. In fact, I didn't notice too much of a difference compared to my M4 Max. It is in a 4K timeline. The only difference is I don't have it on the max playback quality, other than an occasional bit of slowness when clicking or adjusting something. Working with 8 GB of RAM, which is 8 times less what I'm used to, felt way smoother than it should be. I was comfortably editing with Spotify playing in the background, my video document open, and even a couple Chrome tabs. At this point, I thought it was gonna be a walk in the park. I started looking at my M4 Max like it was Thor's hammer, and I was no longer worthy of picking it up and using it. Playback with a single track of video is perfectly smooth, even if I flip it into 2 or even 3 times speed. But as soon as I got to the sections with multiple layers, like the screen recording section, you can see that is not smooth at all. This is playing right now, by the way. Oh, okay, yeah, my whole laptop just froze. The actual act of like dialing in the curves or wheels is pretty responsive. I got that having like this hologram video effect here with all of these different adjustments would be way less manageable than it turned out to be. Now, I did notice the slowness when I was copying those effects to the other clips, and then also the playback afterwards did start to slow down a bit. But let me be clear, it is still usable, to the point where I was actually questioning if I did something wrong or the software was bugged or something on my M1 Pro, because that really started to bug out after adjusting the colors. Like, I've always been pretty clear that I do not need the M4 Max, but now, I don't know, should I be more impressed with what the M1 Air is capable of? Or feel even more guilty than I already am about getting the M4 Max over the M4 Pro, the base M4, or even upgrading at all? Obviously, the M4 Max is smoother and faster and better in every single way, but it's not 15 times the value smoother. And now that I'm essentially done, like, yeah, it's not as smooth of an experience as it was at the beginning. Things like adjusting the position or scale is quite delayed, which does get very annoying. There were a bunch of glitches that I've noticed, things like the cursor not changing the icon of the tool, the audio completely spazzing out in between cuts. And there were a good amount of times where it just totally freezes for 10 to 15 seconds and it just completely pulls you out of the rhythm you're in. And maybe most impressively, granted, the M4 Max doesn't do it at all, this project only crashed 5 times on me. I actually thought that editing on a laptop that has less gigabytes than you have fingers in 2026 would get to the point of being unusable, but it didn't. It's not the most pleasant to work on, but it is possible. And while editing, there's no fan noise, which is because, again, there's no fan, and that might be a problem because next I actually have to render this video. Starting with the M4 Max, I rendered the 18-minute, 15-second, 4K 24-frame video on high power mode, and it took 9.5 minutes and dropped from 64 to 52% battery. I rendered the same video with the same exact settings on the M1 Air, starting at 100% battery in the normal power mode, and that took 51 minutes and dropped the battery down by 27%. I mean, this is where the M4 Max shows its true raw strength, and I'm sure it'd be even faster if I rendered it from the internal drive instead of the external SSD. Also, because of the lack of fan in the Air, I bet the performance throttled, not outputting its full power, so, you know, it doesn't overheat and explode on me. So if you're a student, light, moderate, or even, I guess to some extent, a heavy user, this can do more than you would think, and it is a perfect portable choice. Even though, as of now, it does get all the latest macOS updates, It is treading on that like 5 to 7 year line that Apple typically supports their laptops. And even if it gets dropped from the major macOS updates, it'll still receive security updates. Even still, what's abundantly clear is this thing has plenty of power to work for the years to come. This was a truly humbling experience, but don't get me wrong, I am excited to get back to my M4 Max. Thank you for watching and feel free to subscribe for more.